Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you had a good break, had your coffee, getting ready to listen to this wonderful panel. So this afternoon, this panel is going to be about entrepreneurship or founder journeys. So you have this wonderful panelists who have come all the way from India to share their journeys, and these are all founders of IIT Madras incubated companies. My name is Arun Ramamurthy. I'm a general partner at Pinnacle Ventures, a Menlo Park-based VC firm. And before we actually get started, and I'm actually quite excited to be moderating this panel, and I'm waiting to hear them talk about their journeys and what made them become entrepreneurs and how they kind of overcame the obstacles to get to where they are. But before that, I wanted to allow Professor Mahesh to come in and share a couple of slides on the incubation cell that basically enable a lot of these companies to get started.
Fine. So I just have a couple of slides to talk about the ecosystem that we have that helps them, and you can ask them later on when I step out whether it actually helps them. All right. So I'll just give you a brief overview. We have what we call an incubation cell, the IIT Madras incubation cell, that is responsible for all our startup and incubation related activities. That's kind of an umbrella incubator. We have two sector-specific incubators, one on medtech that Mohan talked about this morning, and one on biotech. Apart from that, we also have a much older incubator, which was originally founded by Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala and Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy, called the Rural Technology Business Incubator. It was very clear in what the objectives were. But when we started to see growth of companies from IIT Madras that were kind of more generic in their outlook, the incubation cell was formed. The incubation cell's mandate is primarily to help these companies grow, just as any other incubator does. And we welcome student companies, faculty companies, alumni companies, and all right. Also, in a few instances where the linkage to IIT Madras is quite strong, we are open to non-IITM companies as well. So, and we currently have, we'll keep going. We currently have about 65 companies in our portfolio, startups in a range of. The previous slide would be good. This is perfect. This is perfect. We'll just.
If you click through it, it'll change. It just takes a second.
All right.
Okay,
fine.
I can drive that.
Okay, fine. I'll just take a couple of minutes. I don't want to take time away from the real people. So essentially, we have about a little over 100 companies right now in various stages of incubation. Out of the 165 currently under incubation, and several that have graduated out of incubation and they're on their own. This is just a couple of those companies. Aether is one that is attracted a substantial amount of funding. They're in the space of trying to disrupt electric mobility. Planis, you'll hear about them from Tanuj here. Unifor is another company that was incubated through the Rural Technology Business Incubator. Signi is one. Swadha is represented here as well. The underlying theme in all these companies, and this is not by design, has been that they're all tech-focused. We have very few kind of app-only startups in our portfolio. So most of the companies that we seem to have incubated, and again, we have to say that this is generally kind of how they've bubbled up, that they are more focused, they go deeper into the areas that they're working in. And the last point I want to say is that what we see as incubation is only the start of the journey for these guys, but it is the end of the journey for another process that lets them come up to this level. And we are very proud of that process as well, where faculty in their labs are doing work, students in many different places, the labs, the Center for Innovation, CSI, and all of the work that they do in these different venues kind of lets them gain confidence in their own abilities and in their own ideas to actually go risk a career on it, which is what most of these guys have done. So on that note, I want to hand over back to Arun. And
So I guess we'll get started with brief introductions. Maybe you guys should go ahead and introduce yourself, which hostel you belong to, and maybe give a little bit about your company. I think he has a mic, so maybe you guys can use it. Yeah, Sabri, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, good evening. My name is Shabrinath. I run a company called Skillveri. We make simulations for vocational skill training. So any work that's done with hands and requires a skillful movement of hands, we can measure that movement of hands and then create tools that can be used to test and train people in those skills. So we have commercialized a welding simulator, which we'll be having a demo later in the evening after 6 o'clock here outside the halls. And we are now working on a simulator for spray painting. I'm not from IIT Madras. I have been fortunate enough to be incubated by IIT's RTBI. And it's been a very exciting journey for me.
Hi, I'm Pankaj. I'm basically an alumnus of IIT Kanpur, 2012 batch. My other co-founder is from IIT Madras, and we began our journey in MDS lab. My company essentially tries to build integrated turnaround management tools for process-heavy industries. So turnarounds are pretty complex. You have around 10 to 20,000 or 30,000 tasks, which are supposed to be done over a span of a month and to be coordinated among 500 people. And these are specifically like oil and gas and steel manufacturing. The value proposition here is, 1 day worth of production is worth a lot. And the longer your turnaround time is, the more you lose money. And apart from that, there are several other constraints, like how do you ensure safety of workers, because these are like contract workers who are actually working. So we have deployed our solutions in Jamnagar, which is the world's largest refinery. We have got good traction from them. We have also tested it out like pilots in Tata Steel, which is like the largest integrated steel plant in India. And that's the stage we are in. And we are currently working out long-term contracts with them.
Daniel.
Hello. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Detect Technologies. I am actually in my final year. I'm hopefully graduating after my review this 15th. 15th. That's in 2 days, 3 days. Yeah.
This is part of the coursework. This is part of the coursework. You get credits for this.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. So I'm also from a hostel that's going to be demolished very soon, Mandakini Hostel. Yeah. Oh, I think I brought news to this room.
Yeah. Did you do something, by the way? Yeah, new Mandak.
No, it wasn't me. No, only Mandak, because it's sunken, it gets flooded all the time. Yeah, okay, so what we do, we basically build technologies to do intelligent asset monitoring in the industries. We actually work in the same space as Maximal Theories and Planis. We're both sister companies, all from Professor Krishnan's lab. And we do two things. We build two technologies. Number one is we're targeting pipelines and pipeline leakages, pipeline leakage prevention for that matter. As Pankaj said, when you have turnarounds, the loss is huge. And pipeline leakages, once they happen, you have to take shutdowns, right? And this leads to both environmental damage, productivity losses, and safety, like loss of life as well. And this happens because there's really no tech today that can monitor these pipelines at high temperatures, while these pipelines are actually at temperatures between 100 to 350 degrees. So we have come out with some patented tech for the first sensor in the world that can actually monitor the thickness changes in these pipelines in real time. And we've actually made it an IoT solution so that the client can just view all the data on their computer screens and know exactly what's happening in their plant as well. And we also are working with Reliance Jamnagar on this, the world's largest refinery. We're working with a bunch of the other PSUs also. And product number two, this actually took us 4 years to build, like basically my whole college life. And in the meantime, we decided that we were exposed to the industry, so there were lots of other problems we could see. And we saw that another problem was how they inspected very large volume assets like your stacks, boilers. It was very primitive. They build scaffoldings, climb up, and inspect it visually or thermally. We've come out with a solution where you can do this in an automated fashion with the drone. We've brought in features of safety, made it much safer than drones out there. We've automated it, and we've used our knowledge from the NDT lab into building algorithms to automatically assess thermal defects and visual defects. I think that was a long introduction, so I'll stop there. Tanuj, yeah.
So aerial drones, just to clarify. Yeah.
Aerial, yes, aerial drones. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Tanuj. I graduated from IIT Madras in 2014 and founder of Planis. We build underwater drones. So we're the first company in India to build underwater drones. And we started off from various tinkering labs, what Professor Mahesh was mentioning, CFI, as student projects. So we came to San Diego, lost in a competition in 2014. It was autonomous underwater vehicle competition. We were hammered very badly by teams like Cornell and MIT doing it for some donkey's years. Anyway, so we started building these from scratch without following any handbook, just learning out of the internet and so on. And over 3 years, we developed about 7 drones and we took it out to the industry. And we found out that the current maintenance and inspection industry, typically in subsea inspection, is very primitive. So what we do is kind of disrupt that. And so we build these drones indigenously and provide services across India. So currently a lot of assets in India in dams which were not inspected from last 50 years are being inspected using our drones. So shipping, oil and gas, dams, environment monitoring, powers, all these are sectors which our drones cater to.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ankit. I'm part of the company called Swada Energies Private Limited. Unfortunately, I was not able to crack JEE, and I'm not as an undergrad from IIT. But I have stayed in all the hostels inside IIT campus, so I don't have a particular. I've broken all the rules inside IIT to become what I am today. So when I was in my undergrad in second year, I was not able to see where I'm growing, and I was very keen in making machines and work toward technologies. And I was very fortunate to get associated with Professor Ashok Junwala, who called me to IIT Madras. And there was initial lot of tough times for me because I was not acquainted with the IIT cultures and all. I didn't have money to stay in city, and also I made friends in IIT in Gurunath and was just barging in their rooms and hey, give me some space to stay over there, and gone inside mess and without having coupons, taken meals and everything. Every rules I have broken over there. I'm sorry, Professor Bhaskar. So this has to come out over here. And and 2013 was a lucky year for us to start the company. Sorry, 2015 we incorporated the company out of all the problem statements that we had, and IIT has made me smart and intelligent. So I in turn make sure that the machines become more smart and intelligent. With IoTs and with power electronics coming in, we make motherboards for the motors. So essentially all the machines, most of the machines have motors inside that. We connect all the sensors with power electronics. We decide what machines to operate in what conditions. So we started from HVAC domain. Air conditioned systems consumes a lot of power. And so we detect, like for large commercial offices and buildings where occupancies have a large diversity, we decide what capacity air-conditioned system should run and optimize the power consumption. So we have a few deployments going on. On HVAC side, we are almost through with the products and commercializations happening. Now, second, on parallel stage, we have started doing some work on solar pumps where electricity is a major problem to agriculture things. So with the solar and with the pumps, we are trying to see how farmers can get benefited in India. So over to Kedar. Thank you.
Hi, I am Kedar Kulkarni. I am a founder of 2 companies. One is Lemma Labs, which is an education company, and second is Hyperverge, which is a deep learning AI company. I was in Tapti hostel, and I don't know how many here are from. Yeah, when I joined IIT, I think Tapti had a T-shirt that said "Sun never sets in Tapti," and I never understood what that meant. But it was Tapti pride, and so coming to what we do, and I come here and every year I give a new story of what we do. And I think that's very symbolic of what a startup journey looks like. But I think this year Hyperverge has found what it does. We are a deep learning company that builds extremely high accuracy classifiers. By classifiers, I mean computer models that can analyze massive amount of data. And the data sets that we are really, really good at is image and video data. So where is massive amount of image and video data coming from? There are satellites all over the, which are capturing billions of images of the planet every day. And, you can either sell this imagery or you can sell this imagery along with analytics, where I can say that, hey, these many ships came into the Chinese port today. These many ships left from the Chinese port today. This much new road was constructed. Government of India is saying deforestation is this much, but it is actually this much. So it kind of creates a very transparent, analytics tool to look over the globe and figure out what exactly is happening. So that's one of the places where Hyperverge technology is being used. The second area is security cameras. The world that we live in today is not becoming more safe. Day by day, the number of incidents that we have are increasing. And most of our systems today do the job of analyzing these incidents when everything has happened, right? And then we say this guy did it. So Hyperverge is creating systems through modules like face recognition, suspicious behavior detection, that plug into the existing security camera network and provides you many data points, many alert points before an incident can actually happen. The third area is financial services, where again we have massive amount of data coming in on one side in form of documents, their images, scans, etc., and on the other side in form of transaction data. So in most of these places, you can imagine Hyperverge being like the Intel inside. Like we buy a MacBook or a Dell or an HP, which has an Intel inside, and we can trust that at least the processor is a good quality processor. Hyperverge is, as in you don't know about the MacBook, but the processor is good. So Hyperverge is building extremely high accuracy models that can sit as an invisible layer, and people can build applications on top of. And these models process billions of data points every month. Currently, we are already working with American Express, we are working with TCS, we are working with Accenture, we are working with Zoho, and pretty much everywhere it's the silent layer of technology that keeps doing its job and hopefully keeps making money for the company.
So I guess since this panel is about founder journeys, I thought we could start with the first part of the journey, which is a decision on to become an entrepreneur, right? So one of the things I heard as I talked to people is that companies like Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley are recruiting on campus 0th day, and everyone seems to want to go to either financial services or consulting job. But you guys obviously decided to take the harder path, right? So what I'd like to understand, and I'm sure the audience would like to understand, is what prompted you to become an entrepreneur, right? You had obviously these choices, and you decided to go down this path. So maybe, Sabri, you can start, and then.
Yeah, so I had not started immediately after I finished graduation. I had worked for...
Yeah, there you go. Speak up a little bit.
Yeah, I had not started immediately. I had worked for about 7-8 years, all in Tenet Group, IIT-grown companies before I took the plunge. And I had never planned for all this. It just happened. And so I was 29 by the time I started. And when an opportunity came, some good idea was there. And then it looked like it needed a full-time time investment to make it happen. So I thought at 29, if I don't do this, then I miss the bus completely. So, and I was already past all that regular problems of getting married and having some savings. So, no, I mean there are if I had after I started, I was having virtually no money for the first 4 years. So if I tried to get married after that, I certainly would not have that.
New criteria for entrepreneurship, right? Pankaj.
I actually was working with Goldman for 4 years. As I mentioned, I'm a 2012 graduate, so I worked for close to about we started this journey last year in January. Until then, I was working with Goldman, mostly in the quant division. It was a nice place to work, to be very frank. I met some of the really bright people. Over time, as I gradually realized, the more sophisticated models I built, the lesser impact in terms of how much happy it made me. And then one day, a very close friend of mine told me, we were discussing some problem, and I just felt like he's lying. I mean, just the kind of environment he was living in, and he told me that this is the problem and we can solve it. Just because I was so deep into technology, it was hard for me to believe that such inefficiencies in the system can exist. One day, he actually invited me and showed me the systems of how these management tools are actually being used in the ground, how the lower people actually are not very well connected to the technology, and we were claiming to be, really the tech has moved so. And that day, it was just like, we decided that this is not how it should be. And I had money, to be very frank, 4 years, Goldman, it's yeah. But essentially what I saw, the value add that I can bring about, just by, very simple changes, you can move plenty of things. And that was essentially the driving factor behind why I started.
Okay, so for me, it's basically like, I don't know how many people are accustomed to memes here, but I didn't choose the thug life chose me, right? So it's kind of like that. Basically, in my first year summer, I had the misfortune of doing one of those industrial trainings for like 10 days where we didn't learn much. That I came back and I was messaging my friend who is my co-founder now, Hari, and I told him, boss, I don't know what to do. Like, I need to do something useful this summer, and I have no idea. And then he said, why don't you just mail a few professors? There seemed to be one cool prof back in first semester who took a course, the first course for us, right? And I was like, yes, Krishnan sir. So I sent across a mail to Krishnan sir saying that, crudely put, I'm vetty, like I'm jobless, and I want to do something very useful in the summer. And so fortunately he said, why don't you come and visit me? So I went to his room, and as usual he was busy. Waited around 2 hours in the same room, looking at all the number of meetings that he had. And then he took me up to this lab, and there I met one of the people who made the biggest impact to me in my life. Again, a co-founder, his name is Tarun Mishra, who had already invented a certain material that can work up to certain temperatures. And it was a very crude proof of concept version of it. And at that time, we just took it up as a project, right? And he said, if we do this, there's a lot of scope. It'll be useful in Reliance. The oil and gas industry is not the limit. You can go to any industry. So we started working, and slowly along the way, we realized that it was a very interdisciplinary problem. You needed expertise both in NDT, non-destructive testing, in electronics, in computer science, a whole load of things. And we slowly started building the teams. And then we were exposed to the field, we convinced the client, then we started realizing there are other problems, and then we started building the teams for these other problems as well. And before you know it, there were already around 30 to 40 people working under us from IIT Madras itself, right? And then, by then, we also got used to the fact that, okay, this is something that can be big, this is a startup. So it's somewhat a gradual change that happened as it went along. So yeah.
As part of Center for Innovation, the first I started doing a lot of robotic projects. So I was working with Kedar in a couple of them. In C5, basically, there's enough capital, there's enough resources that you can just go and have fun. Just build stuff for fun. Nobody cares whether it works, it doesn't work. You blow stuff up, you catch fire. Nobody cares about it. So that's the beauty about it. That's the beauty about it. You have a complete freedom to do what you want. You just play with technology. So there was like first summer of like second sem in first year, and since then my full 9 semesters had just been CFI. I left all sports, I put on a lot of weight, and it was just CFI. So over 4 years, I was totally into robotics, and unfortunately in India, you don't have any companies working a lot in robotics, at least hardware, what I was looking at. So the only options were MS, and I was like, I'm not doing that. So then simultaneously, we had 2 teams working on various underwater drone projects. One was the competition, and then I took up a DDP project under Professor Krishnan and one more co-founder, Dr. Prabhu. And we developed something that created a lot of excitement in industries like Reliance. So Reliance came to us and said, this is awesome what you've done. We don't want this. Can you do something else? Okay. So we're like, why not? Let's give it a shot. So I left and I joined Tata Motors. Okay. And I just gave up in life in 3 months after joining the company. So I was like, sorry if anyone is from Tata Motors, but yeah, that's yeah. So I was just like in a panic mode in 3 months of joining a first job. And I was like, I'm not useful here. I'm just wasting time here and so on. So the other guys stayed back in campus and they were figuring out some startup. So then I got a call from Prabhu sir and he's like, you're working on something. Do you want to join? And I said, yeah, there's nothing else. I'll just go for it. And came back in, Feb 2014, 15. And then we started off working on Planis. So obviously when we joined, none of us, like at least the 3 graduates were graduates, no savings, nothing. Never worked in industry like oil and gas. I don't even understand how the crude price was decided then, and so on. So it was just like, doesn't really matter. Faculty support was immense. So we just went ahead with it. And luckily, my father's a businessman, so I didn't have an issue. I didn't have to send money home and so on, so that was taken care of. I was just by myself and had enough, like I had about good 5-6 year timeline that, okay, I can just do experiments. So a good condition to be in. It's not fortunate that everyone gets that condition to be in, so that prompted me to just go ahead and do it.
I have 2 reasons of starting a company. The one is, since my childhood, I was very keen in opening machines and seeing how machines work. And my mother always used to tell me that, hey, this is not working, can you just repair it? Whether it is a mixer grinder, whether it is a fan, whether it is anything else in the home. And that's what circulated the news in the society that I was living. And society people started calling me, hey Ankit, this is not working, can you just repair it? So that kind of more passionated me and made my interest towards more machine. So that, and I got quite motivated towards working on the technology and the machine. This was the one reason why I wanted to pursue engineering. And the second reason was when I talked to my seniors and my cousins, all my cousins are into corporate life. None of them were happy. What Tanuj said was 3 months down the line, he was frustrated enough to leave the job. So I was very clear that I'm not going for a corporate life. So, and my parents, my father has a good business running in Calcutta. So I always have a backup plan to, if nothing doesn't work, there's an umbrella which is protecting me over there. So when I went into the college, which was not a great college, but I was not able to figure out what I'm doing. And fortunately, somehow it was tough for me to come to IIT Madras. Initially, I had a tough time to get associated with IIT Madras. But luckily, Professor Ashok got to know me. And now we are doing great jobs in IIT. And given the IIT incubation cell and the facilities that we have in IIT, we are doing great over there. So that's how he motivated me to start the company.
So I joined IITM in 2008. And when I went into IITM, pretty much every club, every activity that is happening, that is being presented to you. So this is sports at IIT Madras, this is dramatics at IIT Madras, this is something at IIT Madras. And I took part in everything. The one particular thing that attracted me more than anything else was Center for Innovation. Because at Center for Innovation, people were building the first self-balancing bicycle in the world. Someone was building a plane that takes off from water, flies, and it can go and be an underwater sub. That never worked, but someone was building it. So, as in, what was happening there is there were people who had these crazy ambitions, and they were spending pretty much till every day. You would see Center for Innovation at 3 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning. People are there. 6 a.m. in the morning, people are waking up, brushing their teeth, and on a weekday, brushing their teeth and showing up to class. So that was the kind of passion that that center stood for, and that attracted me. And I became a water boy there and in one of the teams, because pretty much I did not know anything. That year, our team ended up representing India in International Aerial Robotics Championship and did so for the next 4 years after that. I think somewhere in my second year, someone called me to Ganga Hostel. And those were my teammates, couple of teammates from the team, and said, "Will you do marketing?" I said, "What?" "No, we are planning to sell these robotics kits. And I think we know robotics because we represented India. People don't know. But, we should make some kits and sell." And I was doing enough technology at Center for Innovation anyway, because we used to be there till 2 a.m. every day. So I said, okay, at least there will be some change. I'll take up something new and do marketing. And that was how naively we started out that company. And it started with a bunch of 10 people. Every time we used to sit in front of Himalaya and discuss. And I think for the first 4 weeks or first 4 months, we just came up with a logo. That was the most productive thing we did. So eventually that company started making sense, as Hyperverge is now. And we started going to many colleges that did not have the infrastructure that IIT has, that did not have a center for innovation. And we started setting up these robotics labs in those colleges so that those kids can also learn. And it was brought down to a point where, a kid can pay $2,000 Indian bucks a month, a year, and they can learn robotics, right? That's like $30 a year and you can learn robotics. You don't have to buy anything. So it took pretty much 40 hours a week while we were studying at IIT to pull that off, because we committed all of these things, but then to make those video lectures, to set up those labs, it took a lot of, lot of bunks, lot of hard work, lot of night outs to... Yeah. No proxies, but yeah. I was in metallurgy. There are 30 people. If one person is not there, everyone knows. No, I was in metallurgy, too small a class to put proxy. So finally, but that wasn't entrepreneurship, right? That was just doing something that is interesting, doing something that you committed to something, you should deliver on that. I think the turning point came when we were, in our final year, and my seniors were dual degree students. I was a BTech, and all of us were not sure where this education venture is going, because it was more of a not-for-profit, 3 professors and us doing it. We never took any money from it, and it did not look like it can ever give us any money, right? It can pay any salaries kind of thing. And I think we all decided to sit for campus placements. I got a job in Bay Area. My co-founders got consulting jobs, and we all come from middle class families. So they had a lot of pressure from the family to take up the job, and looked like, Lemma Labs would end as a story there, because, if 3 of us leave, there is no company anymore. And I think that was the point when 2 important things happened. One is IITM has always been a supporting body. We have always, everything we did was at IIT Madras. So the professors were very supportive. But a professor from IIM named Sunil Handa came to IIT Madras. And he gave a talk on what entrepreneurship is. And one of the biggest fear that I had about entrepreneurship, which is, what if my idea fails? Or what if this education company never becomes anything? What then? Right? Is my career gone? And he spoke about his different ideas. And 6th or 7th idea after he got out of IIM was selling potatoes to Jordan. and that was his fabulous idea. But eventually, I think his 8th idea worked. And that idea was core Emblage and core chemicals. And it was the largest IV fluid makers in India. It was the 3rd largest in the world. And a 4,000 crore business. So he brought in that understanding that it's not your first idea that needs to work. It's a lifestyle that you're choosing. And if you're an entrepreneur, then you have to choose this lifestyle. So that was a turning point. And I was still not sure. So, US jobs start much later after India jobs, because visas and all take time. So I said, let me wrap up Lemma Labs at least. Let me finish all the commitments that we had taken up. and I remember a class that I was going there to do. And at that time, we had so little money that I had to wonder if I should take an AC bus or if I should take a normal bus. 80 bus was 19 rupees and normal bus was 3 rupees. And I had to actually think to make that decision. And that had to be like change of 3 buses and stuff. So I remember getting down from a bus and walking into a place. And I was walking for almost 1.5 kilometers. And it was all fields around me. And that point, I think it hit me very hard. What the hell am I doing? Like, middle of nowhere, hot sun. I'm walking with these 2 robotic kids. There are some 600 forms in my back, feedback forms. And I'm in the middle of nowhere and I don't need to do this. And I did not sign up for this. My co-founders are, I think, right now planning their next vacation. So it hit me very hard that what am I here? And I think life keeps putting you in the corner in many situations. And those situations tell you what you stand for. I think the one lesson that came to me that day and that has stayed with all our teams even to date has been that, I can always decide not to go to this college and I can go back and I can get my job and I will have, the same life. But is there anyone else who will come there and teach these guys robotics? Will there be anyone else who will come to this college? And I think that has been like the moment of entrepreneurship for me, that I think as IITians, we don't screw up, we'll be successful, right? I think we just don't do nasty stuff. We just keep doing things that we know and we are good at. We'll be successful. But then if we have to do something for the 99.99% who are not so privileged, then it takes few of us to come together and really put that as the goal. And I think entrepreneurship naturally happens. So I think that was the moment of entrepreneurship for me.
Cool. Thanks for sharing those. Yep. So now we can kind of shift a little bit. I mean, obviously now you've chosen the entrepreneurship journey, right? Can you talk a little bit about what's happening in India from the economy standpoint that's enabling you guys from your company, or if you're going globally, like what's creating the opportunity? And you don't have to go in sequence. Anyone who wants to pick it up can pick it up and answer.
If I have to tell, I had a tough time because I never had, in the initial stage, I never had parental supports when I chose entrepreneurship as a journey. My parents belong to a business community where they buy stuffs and they sell. They only see that I'm buying in 10 rupees, tomorrow I'll be selling in 11 rupees, I make 1 rupee profit, sufficient enough. Entrepreneurship involves a lot of corporate lives and a lot of tough decisions that needs to be taken, where if I look 5 years down the line, that support was not there from many of the parents. Now I'm seeing that a lot of parents have started supporting their children to think about new ideas, to come up with new inventions and take risk in their life after graduation, maybe during the graduation stage. So this kind of support, especially from the parents, do help us, giving us some confidence to take this risk and start a new venture. And parallelly, government of India also have started taking a lot of initiatives to support entrepreneurship, like Startup India culture, Make in India culture, and as part of corporates, large MNCs and corporates are concerned, they are also quite interested in supporting startups. Now, when we started the company 3 years back, initially we had a lot of tough time in going and meeting our partners like, sir, we are a startup, please help us in manufacturing this component. And they were a lot worried, like, who are these startups and will they sustain? Why should I spend time in talking to you? But now if I go and talk to the manufacturers as a future of our partners, they are quite interested because of the initiative that government of India has taken, creating awareness that what startups are, what is Startup India doing, what is Making in India. So we get a lot of supports from other companies also in bringing them as our channel partner. So I think it was a tough time in the beginning, but we have a long way to go. And given all the supports coming up, it is right time to think forward on this line.
So something very similar to what he said is they accept failure. So just in our case, there were 5 of us, and we built a complete turnaround management platform and actually deployed it in Reliance. And people were actually using handheld devices inside refinery. You need special permission from very senior people just to get that. And that scale at which it was deployed, we screwed up a lot. but they were okay with it. And similarly, when we actually deployed it in Tata Steel, the thing is that we failed, but we fixed it very fast. And they were very supportive of it. And that is, I think, what made the difference for us.
Daniel.
One quick thing, very specific to the domain that the three of us are in is when I was in my second year, the oil and gas industry were not very receptive towards any new technology that was coming in, right? And that was the point, that inflection point when it started changing. And over time, once the whole Startup India thing came, the government started pushing for these PSUs to start opening up grants. So now BPCL, HPCL, ONGC, IOCL, they've all come up with grants for startups that are relevant in their area. And these are not small grants. I think $500,000, right? Yeah. So $500,000 has been set aside just for as funds for startups. And added to that, very interestingly, one of the most progressive people was a man we met from BPCL. He came and he told us that it's not just the money that counts, and it is also the support from the industry that counts, because the industry that we are dealing with is a very tough industry to understand and a very tough industry to convince as well. And they helped us a lot. So they started providing feedback to us, and as Pankaj said, they accepted failure. Like I told you that the sensor product took 4 years for us to build, and there are about 3 installations that had failed, right? And only over time were we able to perfect it. And once it's perfected, they benefit out of it. So all of these changes, there's been a huge change in this industry specifically over this span of, I would say, 3.5 to 4 years. Yeah.
That's great. Let's do a little bit of a time travel experiment, right? So let's say you go back in time and you were just starting, right? Now that you know what you know, what would you have told your personality at that time, or person at that time, to say, do you do it, do you not do it? What advice would you give them? Finish
your thesis faster. and
Okay, anyone else?
Not to trust Excel sheets. Not to trust Excel sheets.
Okay.
So when we got incubated in RTBI, there was an opportunity to present for a loan. And so we had this business plan all thought through. We had just built a prototype. We never had really got confirmed orders. There were oral orders given, which we thought were really true. And so we took the money, and then we spent the money to build the prototypes and then build machines for people who had orally placed orders. So in about 8 months, instead of sitting on 8 crores of rupees as we had projected, we had only one user who was not bought the machine, but was paying a rental and then trying it out. So instead of sitting on 8 crores of cash, we were sitting on a revenue of 7,500 rupees. So so I wouldn't trust Excel sheet-based projections anymore.
Okay. Anyone else?
As in, our journeys have been very short, so it's not really. So for me, as of now, I wouldn't say anything. I would say keep going. Whatever.
Okay, that's good.
So. I think Keda would be better.
Okay.
One thing I would like to teach myself is never lose hope. I was given a problem statement, and somehow I was not able to crack it. And I was going through a lot of frustration that time that this is not going to work, and I was having a lot of arguments with Professor Ashok that, sir, what kind of problem statement is this? Because there's a lot of cost debate argument goes with Professor Ashok. I had found a sensor that was costing around 7,000 rupees. Whereas if I put that sensor in the product and if I'm selling that, nobody's going to buy that. So, and professor was giving me a target that sensor should not cost more than 500. Whereas I was finding it in 7,000. And over months and months, this discussion was going on that, Ankit, you're going nowhere. You're not going to make products. You should go out of IIT and go back and do your traditional business in Calcutta. And literally that evening was a very hard conversation with Professor Ashok, and he made me cry that you're going nowhere and you cannot do anything in your life. So I was sitting on Himalaya grounds, and So somehow that night I was just Googling things like what the sensors are and why we cannot get a low cost sensor. Morning 3 o'clock I mailed him that, sir, I got a sensor in 450 rupees and right now we are making that product with that sensor. So the first thing that I would like to say is we should never lose hope. And even, in fact, in the entire journey of 3.5 years, we have seen many failures happening in our products. And the entire team sometimes get too frustrated that we don't know how to crack this problem. We don't know how to make it work. If you sell it to the customers, it will not work over there. But many of the times, even after seeing failures, we have a chance to correct it and make it more better and more better. And right now, we think that we are in a much better stage what we were in a couple of years before. So that's the point I would like to raise this. We should never lose hope. We'll find, if there is a will, there is a way.
Kedar.
So, yeah, I think I have always enjoyed this journey. So I would never travel back and change anything. I would just keep it the way it is. But yeah, I think this was a big learning from last year that I was here and, beginning of the month, beginning of the year, Jan, all VCs are back and you are there. The freeze is gone and you are there to raise money. So we had to raise money because, that time we were doing consumer apps and consumer apps never make money. So you have to keep raising. And, and I have tortured Arun and so many of these guys every year on, every year I think I remember that line that Srinivasan sir told me of Aerospike. For initial years of the company, every year you have to figure out a way to save your company, right? By default, it's going to die and someone has to save it. So I think that was the time when regarding business, regarding life, an important learning came. I remember a morning where I met a VC, I would not name, but I got out of office of SV Angels, and SV Angels, one of the legendary VCs here, and they said, Kedar, whatever happens, you don't, close this round. Give us 1 day to come back to you. And I was on cloud 9, SV Angels saying that please don't close this round and stuff. And then I get a call, and I walked into SV Angels meeting with that confidence because I had a call from another VC who said, we love your leadership. We now love what you have done with the money. We gave you so little. You have done so much with that. And we are investing. We will give recommendations if you want to invest. So all of these nice things. And I went with that confidence SV Angel meeting, cracked that meeting. And I think 4 hours later, I just took a Caltrain from SF and got down at Palo Alto where Anand and Venki have their office where I was working out of. And just when I got down from the office, I got message from the same VC firm that said, actually, we had some internal conversations and we discussed, and maybe this is not the right time to put money. And, I think we should maybe revisit this decision in 2 months. We are not sure. I said, I think in morning you mentioned about me being, I did not say that, but, in a day you experience seasons, right? You experience the good season, you experience the bad season. And I think that taught a lesson that, on the outside, things are going to keep changing. I think if we are doing something of value, if we are doing something that's difficult, I think it's important to keep at least the climate inside very good. And that should not be like, it should not be like Boston where you are out and it's freezing and you start shivering. If you have a jacket, then, your climate is all well maintained, so you can actually play around in that snow. Right? The problem is not the weather, the problem is that you don't have a jacket. So that was a very important lesson. And I think as entrepreneurs, we go through a journey of continuous ups and downs. And, pretty much what it comes down to is, can we do what is necessary in that situation? I see most of us managing ourselves, not the situation. We are going through our own motions, our own emotions. So the better we can handle ourselves, I think the more time we get to solve the situation on the outside. And I think that's what we did, and we raised a round and we raised it at double the value. Everyone was saying that it's not going to be possible, but it all happened. And I think that was the biggest lesson. If I have to go back to my past self, I will tell that person to work more on himself and less on the outside, because the outside will automatically figure itself out.
So thanks for sharing that. So I have a lot of questions, but I want to let the audience ask the questions as well.
Audience Q&A.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a lot of questions. I can keep going, but I want to give everyone an opportunity to ask questions.
Question, please, right here.
Okay, while you're waiting, maybe I'll ask the next question. Okay, please.
Stand up and get to the mic. Loud enough? No.
Yeah, Manishi, go ahead. Go ahead.
those people who have not yet.
Okay, those of you who are married and those who are dependent on their parents or not dependent on their parents, how much support did you get from the family when you were stumbling?
So my parents
Speak up,
were both my parents were both central government employees. So nobody in my family had ever run a business. So it was the rest of the family had kind of shut me out, but my parents stood by me. I did something more sacrilegious. We were looking for one developer to do the game development for my simulation, and then we couldn't find one. My wife had a background in IT, but she was working in State Bank of India as an officer. So I made her quit and then joined my company, and then so I became a case study in my family circles that what not to do. Khud to pagal hai, and he had also made someone who works in State Bank of India, like in Kerala, it's like next only to IS. now everybody is all praise having come this far.
Anybody else taking the answer? No, okay. I can ask the question now?
Yeah, please.
I mean, I'm interested in knowing how capital intensive were your ventures and how much money you had to raise till the point where you could get your first revenue, or when it's a break-even point, anybody, especially the capital intensive ones, I'm interested in knowing.
Very capital intensive ours is. We need to upfront invest in the drone that takes a lot of capital in first building it. That's R&D. That's written off straight away. Once you build it, you have problems, you have upgrades, you have things not working. So at least our business is extremely capital intensive. So,
But Tanuj, I think you should talk about what capital intensive, because in your mind, capital intensive
Yeah,
dollars
exactly.
could be $100,000.
And timeline, how long did it take for you to kind of sell your first product?
so we salvaged a lot from what we built earlier. And we got the first working one. We did one paid job just to show the tick. And we did an angel round within 3 months of incorporation.
And you had to raise how much?
We raised 300K. Within 3 months. And with that...
That's the capital intensive part, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. as in for initial where we don't have an office, we were not paying ourselves, there was nothing. It was just for building the drone. So...
Rupees or dollars?
Dollars.
Okay, anyone else?
I can add to that.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So same situation actually, very capital intensive. We had to invest in the drone, and added to that the R&D cost for the sensor, everything. And I would say there IIT helped a lot. So did Professor Krishnan's lab as well. And two of the founders, Professor Krishnan and Tarun, shelled out money from their personal accounts as well. So it came to at least around 150K at that point. And we did make revenues. We did start making revenues last year. But again, it was not enough to break even. So then we raised an angel round recently, about 2 weeks back, worth $700K dollars. And yeah, so it is quite capital intensive until you hit that mark. But now the flow has become a lot more smoother. So yeah.
So in Skillvery's case, every unit that we sell costs a few lakh rupees in materials. And I think the good thing was that none of us had the money. So me and my co-founders together had about raised equity of some 7 lakh rupees, and we had loan of 20 lakh rupees from IIT Madras. So because we didn't have much money, we didn't have avenues to spend it on, so all of us kind of pulled in, so that 20 debt and 7 lakh in equity was all it took us for about 18 months to make our first sale. But once we started selling, the margins were good, and the sales kept on happening. And then IIT kept on adding 1 or 2 loans at the right time. So we were able to do it without any kind of bootstrapped for about 4 years before we raised real money.
Any questions? Please.
So how much has intellectual property played a role in your overall portfolio, in the sense that if you couldn't sell your product, were you in a position to sell your patents to somebody and then recover the capital? Or how much has IP played a role in your startup so far? I mean, you get any international patents on it? No?
We hope so, that happens. So see, for us, it's been 2 years. So we're still building the product. We have about 10 patents we've filed.
Good.
And we know at least we're staring at another 15 or so in the next 1 year. So eventually, yeah, that's one of it's not really a plan B, but then you need to protect yourself as well. So being a system integration and building hardware technology eventually leads to a lot of patent indirectly, whether or not. Or you can figure out how to put a patent anyways. So...
No, that's a good question. Go ahead. Yeah.
So see, for us at least, US is already a crowded market. So we would never get anything in US anyway. So we did it in India and markets that we would potentially expand to there. But again, it has its costs. Now, initial days when our burn is like 5 lakh Indian, every sensor we buy is 15 lakh. You want to save every penny, even for IPR and so on. So it's that waiting game on when is the right time to file it, when, where there's an exit or something like that.
So none of the patents were even provisional in US,
No.
Okay.
There's no point in wasting money there.
Well, I mean, there are people who will invest in you because you're filing patents and they'll say, okay, if you got money back.
Yeah, but the odds of actually getting that patent from filing to that is against us.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, he's actually going to mic.
No, let him move, man. Come on. He's younger than me.
The IPs that you generate, they belong to IIT Madras. But do you have exclusive use, or does IIT still have the opportunity to share it with others?
Actually, let them clarify. Does the IP belong to IIT Madras?
Yes,
Okay.
some of it.
Yes and no. That's why I want to clarify that. Yeah. Yeah.
See, the original technology IP belongs to IIT Madras, which is a proof of concept. What it takes is a lot of more to take it to a product. So there's an initial contribution where there's a royalty payment. And it is not really exclusive, but then in that state, not really a lot of people will want to buy it anyways. So there's both ways to it. It depends, but it depends. For us, at least, it was in a state where I don't think anyone would want to buy it. So we still have it.
Go ahead. No, Mahesh, you want to add something, right? Okay. So actually, any more questions? If not, I think we're running out of time. One final question for you guys from my side. How do you think the IIT Research Park, the Incubation Council, obviously the people here, how can they be helpful? Obviously, you've kind of been here, but you obviously need a lot more support. So how can this audience help you take your company to the next level? Other than money. Money is there, obviously. It's obvious. Something else.
See, for us, at least, it's about the alumni support. As in, when we started off, we had no clue of these sectors we were catering to. And till date, people ask me that, oil and gas, shipping, bloody, you've not done anything. How are you? I'm like, I know my robotics. That's enough for me to sell. I have a huge gang of alumni of, from batch 1950, whatever. From wherever it started till today, and they know, just imagine if they know 10 more people along the globe in these industries that you're staring at, more than 10,000 people I can just get hold of by just sending out and reaching out to them. So that alumni network is at least the strength that helped us sell and mentor us in these mature sectors, because we were very, very amateurish to start with initially. So I think the alumni connect and support is something that has to continue and has to just get bigger and bigger. That's what I look forward to.
Okay, great. Ketan, do you want to add?
You can continue.
Research Park is a great facility, as in the first problem statement that was given to us was the problem statement that was identified inside the Research Park building itself, as in why the air condition is consuming so much of energy and why the clients are complaining that they are not satisfied even after paying so much of electricity bill. So we took Research Park as our research center, did R&D over there, deployed the products, made the product fails over there, and that is how the products have evolved out of Research Park. And as far as the alumni reach is concerned, probably my goal is to make Swadha the nest of India. So we work on HVAC domain, whereas when we see Nest in United States, probably I'm trying to reach someone in the Nest, I see the product much more in an advanced stage and much more aesthetic-wise, and people are very comfortable in using a Nest product, whereas I see there's some gap in our products that we have in India. So probably I would be very happy if I get associated with alumni and with the alumni networks so that we can try to grow Swada and get a Nest out of it in India.
I think the two areas where the community here and worldwide can add a lot of value. The first is what can help new companies to start, because if we make sure that that process is always a fantastic process, then we are going to see so many new entrepreneurs come up. And I think there is a massive amount of effort already going on, right? At the director level, at alumni association level, at sessions are here. Pretty much there is a lot of effort going on in making sure that right amount of funds are there, and we can keep that ecosystem very vibrant. On the ground, I think we are looking at research park, and we are looking at a better, bigger CFI that is coming up. So what has been working for us, if we can make sure that we run it at a higher speed with more vibrancy, right? More money coming in, more support coming in. I think that will, in a way, create a pathway for the new generation entrepreneurs to rise. I think that's the most important function, because once that entrepreneur gets an opportunity, right, that person is already there. He's a high quality person. If he gets an opportunity, he's going to hustle his way to success somehow. So, but whatever are the impediments to him getting that opportunity or him starting are in some way, being made easier and easier and easier as we all create support systems back there. So everyone who can contribute in any which way to the support systems that are being built, I think that is setting the right environment for that seed to germinate. Coming to the second most important function, I think fundraising was, when we started out a company, fundraising was the most difficult job, because it was impossible to raise money. And in India, when you raise money, people come to like 40% of your company's mind kind of term sheets. But today, the kind of atmosphere I see, I don't see fundraising as the biggest challenge, because most people have been able to raise money. There are people who have done it before, so people helping each other. And finally, the ecosystem is also becoming bigger in terms of the Indian funding ecosystem, angel ecosystem, US angel ecosystem. Now what companies need and where they need help is foot in the door, right? When it comes to actual revenue, when it comes to converting that funding or that promise that people have shown on you into actual confidence that that money has been utilized well and the company has converted it into revenues. As Tanuj mentioned, the biggest challenge is getting there and getting that opportunity. I have not heard of a single company coming from IIT Madras where they got an opportunity and they screwed it up, right? They might make mistakes, but they are going to spend sleepless nights. They are going to work 7 days a week, 14 hours a day to finally make it work. I have never heard of anyone who got an opportunity and he screwed up that opportunity. So what that means is, if you get that guy in the door to an opportunity, show that confidence, show that trust, they might be making some mistakes, but still support them in that journey, then they will finally make it work. And this is what we have seen in funding also, right? Because when IIT was giving out these 5 lakhs, maybe 5 years back, there was no understanding if people will utilize that money well, misutilize that money when those 20 lakh loans were given out. But largely we see, I am yet to hear of a story where someone took that money and did not do their job, right? Everyone who took that money today, Ether, I remember them taking that money with us. Satish and Enba took that money for DocsApp with us. And all these guys have spent 14 hours a day, 7 days a week working to convert that promise into a bigger promise. So if you can give them an opportunity for their technology, for their team, to create revenue in US, to create revenue in India, I think they will never screw it up. So if you can show that confidence, that will be the biggest contribution.
Great, I think we're out of time. Please join me in congratulating these guys on their successful journey.